All right, which one of these videos y'all want us to watch? Why Destiny 2 is fundamentally broken, Tides of Annihilation, or Fate Keeper? We're gonna probably watch all of these today, but which one would y'all want us to hear first? Okay, why Destiny 2 is fundamentally broken, then Fate Keeper, then Tides. Okay, let's take a listen then.
A game for everyone is a game for no one. I believe Destiny is at its fullest potential when it's trying to cater to the player who grinds all 3 characters every week. The best part about me making this claim is that's not even me. The beauty of Arrowhead's quote is that the best games are ones that don't even necessarily target you as the intended player. Playing in an LFG years ago, I heard something that stuck with me ever since. You will cheer if you get a god roll to drop after having to do something meaningful, but you will feel nothing if that exact same roll came out of a menu. Back in the House of Wolves expansion in Destiny 1, you could reroll your
Pete Parsons said that? What?
meaningful, but you will feel nothing if that exact same roll came out of a menu. Back in the House of Wolves expansion in Destiny 1, you could reroll your guns at the gunsmith with materials. And let's just say that was not a feature found in the rest of the game's lifespan. We'll get to what happened in the sequel. You could see Bungie's vision in wanting to try and minimize the repeated grinding of the same activity over and over again and reducing the RNG needed to get the god roll, but it was clearly not the right approach to do it that way. I mean, D1 fans especially should remember that RNG is what made the game special. We didn't load up DPJ loot drop reaction videos because everyone is super excited to instantly get the drop they wanted. What made the drop special was that there wasn't a guarantee that it would happen. Destiny 2 had forgotten the literal...
Dude, Destiny 1 was gambling. Yeah. Remember, Cam even said it. Destiny players would want to gamble again. That was some gambling. But hold on. It could go the other way. You could turn in a purple and get a blue. You know what I mean?
Appeal of the game. Twice in its life cycle, everyone having static rolls cooked the game from the very beginning. And then, of course, there's crafting. Crafting turned the loot chase into a checklist versus the constant intrigue of every drop maybe being the one that you've been searching for. It does not belong anywhere near the end game, and I'm so glad it was removed in Edge of Fate. The more casual audience always complains that they're unable to get their perfect god roll and they don't have all that time needed to grind the game. That's always a sentiment that confused me. Why would you need a perfect god roll if you aren't doing things like endgame activities, because those are the things that actually take time? Because instead they would be camping out in the strike playlist or whatever the equivalent of that is now in the portal. However, I can recognize that it would be a terrible feeling as a casual and it would suck to not get the 2 trait combos that you're interested in, but that's an incentive to play. If there's one gun that you really want and you're having trouble getting it, if you wanted to have an easier and faster time, you can make new friends and interact with the community to be able to farm it faster, and the feeling you'll get when it drops will make it all worth it. That level of excitement and incentive is deeply missing in the game right now. The D1 activity reward screen needs to come back. Nothing created incentive more than seeing what everyone in your fire team was getting, which let you share in their glory and get jealous.
I mean, yeah, maybe bring it back. I'm gonna be honest, nothing pissed me off more than watching somebody bottom frag and they get damn Hawkmoon. I wanted to throw my damn controller. You hear me? I remember just shaking my monitor like, what the f? Somebody dropped 1 kill in a Crucible match and they get a damn Hawkmoon or some exotic to drop. And you know that shit was intentional. No, I can't prove it. But like weight gates, I guarantee you there was an aspect meter. Bungie and Activision have this set up where if they think you are getting 2 aspect, then out comes an exotic. I can't prove it, but it existed back in D1.
When it happened to someone you didn't like. It really was a staple of the Destiny franchise, and I'm shocked it never came back in D2. But it needs to now. And nothing shows how Bungie lost the fundamental concept of what made Destiny exciting more than where it all went wrong. The portal. The little anecdote I gave with the casual getting help to farm something is something that never happens in the portal. The funniest video I've ever seen is Esoteric's portal change video. It basically boils down to altogether removing the portal and all the new aspects that came from it. The scoring, the modifiers, the leveling rates. And the best part is, he's not wrong. The portal was conceived as the one-stop shop for new and returning players to quickly understand that if they played the things in it, they would make progress. Naturally, this goal completely misses the mark. Players are frustrated with the barrier to entry because they need to optimize the modifiers to get the correct score that they need, which isn't even forecasted correctly. And not to mention the disparity that comes when people are at a different power level than you. The portal killed the social aspect of the game, even with our new power farms and fire team and pinnacle ops that, if done correctly, blow solo ops out of the water. We are still limited.
I think Bungie fixed the power level situation, but yeah, the scoring the scores are just vastly different depending on your level.
In playing with people at our same levels if we want to have the most optimal time. They are trying to tackle this by adding deltas to the portal, which is good in concept, but people who actually know how to use the portal correctly are just using player stakes and beating things with no more than a plus 20 delta on ultimate difficulty. So in reality, you're just going to be slowing the optimized players down. Then, limiting matchmaking to 3 of the fire
This video is a month though, by the way.
team ops a day is absolutely criminal. We lost the one-stop shop playlists, and that was a major killing blow to the game. The quick play playlists that they do have only go up to master, leaving GM and ultimate the actual 2 difficulties that most people play without any variety. We're forced to pick the fastest match-made options, which are limited to, you know, 1 of the 3 available for the day, and you just hope for the best, doing the same repetitive activity over and over. People might say, just use fire team.
Guys, I know some of y'all hate deltas, but do you realize how strong we are? Minus 30 is really not that challenging. It's not that challenging. Hell, you could even arguably solo them with a good build, minus 30 content. That's why Conquest really like shocks people. When you get in that minus 40, minus 50, that's when it gets real, man.
Finder then. Well, that still limits us to 1 activity we have to pick. And then we're back to trying to get everyone to the right score and having that roadblock. You're forced to either bring people and just suck up the pain points that come up with matchmaking, go to a solo activity, or more accurately, stop playing altogether. Even if they made great changes to the portal and got it where they want it to be, the sentiment around it is just so negative that it's not worth it. They've already put a lot of resources into it, so they shouldn't remove it. But we need to bring the focus back on incentivizing people to play with each other again. I've seen people say, just put the 4 portal nodes on the director and call it a day. But that really misses the point of what the director and the portal both try to achieve. But you know what game had the jumping in quickly thing figured out? D1. On the director, if you just wanted to play something as fast as possible, you simply went to the bottom left corner and used the quick access menu. We had a Crucible playlist, a story one, a strike playlist, the Nightfall, Prison of Elders, and wow, what?
Oh, man. Yeah, it wasn't a lot of options, but it was consolidated.
What's this? A raid? I didn't know they incentivized playing those. But all these mainline activities are available to access at the press of a button. Although in the game's current state, the quick access button would not work as well as it did in D1. The play your way sentiment that came with the portal turned into, let's not play at all. There are far too many difficulties, especially since the only actual change I could tell that was happening between all of them was like at one point they added champions. There are 6 difficulty options and that is not needed whatsoever. We could easily condense that to 3. Doesn't matter which ones are picked, but it should be Advanced, Master, and Ultimate. Granted, it would be much more Destiny if the names were swapped around a little. For Advanced, we could call that normal, Master is Master, and then we would call Ultimate Grandmaster. The only thing that I could see the 6 difficulties allowing is having respective teardrops for each level. Although, if you think about it for more than 1 second, there are 5 tiers and 6 difficulties. So there's already some overlap in dropping multiple of 1 tier somewhere in there. So for normal, give it tiers 1 and 2, Master 3 and 4, and then GMs 4 and 5. This consolidation of the difficulties can lead to a much easier matchmaking experience and will drastically reduce queue times for activities and get people back in playlists. Then this will let us leave solo ops in the dust where they belong, because if we can easily populate fireteam playlists, then there's no need for the terrible, boring solo slops to have any further investment made for them.
Chat, I need to know your thoughts, because some of you live in solo ops. Some of you, for whatever reason, wake up and go, I'm going to do salt mine today. How would you feel if solo ops was removed? But fireteam ops had matchmaking on everything. I kind of like the consolidation he's talking about here. Also, there is a ton of different difficulty options, like a ton. And let's just be real. Grandmaster is not even Grandmaster anymore. Grandmaster is really Ultimate. Ultimate is Grandmaster. What OG Grandmaster was is what Ultimate is.
I mean, Dado told Bungie at the summit that they were trash for a reason, and we all know it. We also need to consider the biggest complaint about the portal, right guys? I intentionally say this because I know each one of you probably said a different thing, because everything about the portal is someone's biggest complaint. Yet, one of the complaints I see the most is that it's all just old content. I think this has the opportunity to be a good thing. The future of the portal is really found in the past. There is a place for the portal if it is just mainly being old content being recycled. The portal should be a source for old drops when the respective activities are removed from the game.
This is what I always thought the portal was going to be. It was going to live alongside in our world where destinations and accessing new activities was the way we've always done it. But the portal was for bringing new players in and streamlining them into old content, and then have an opportunity for us to jump back into some old activities here and there so that we're populating those playlists.
Shouldn't be the main hub of the game, but rather a supplemental experience to quickly hop in, level up, and get some classic loot. That's going to be the great way to cut their losses with the portal without completely removing it from the game. We have already opened Pandora's box and dished out tier 5s everywhere, simply for just getting to the right light level. We need to have some loot be exclusive and desirable. This one kind of feels like a cheap shot, but bring back Adepts and Artifice armor. Adepts should be in the pinnacle activities like raids, dungeons, trials, and comp. Adepts are an iconic statement of someone's accomplishments. They should be a lot rarer and actually provide a benefit to seeking them out, unlike how they were in D2. In D1, Adepts had a unique perk like Snapshot or Last Resort on the Trials guns. We need a game changer like that on the new Adept weapons. The easy...
We're just so power crept though, man. Like, would I farm an Adept on a Trials weapon if it gave me intrinsic Snapshot? Absolutely. You know how many people would farm that? That means you could devote your other 2 perks entirely to target acquisition. But what happens when you do that, and then you have your wave of players saying, I can't go flawless now, or I can't get this Adept weapon because now you've given Benny a sniper rifle he was already good with. He's even better now. You've ruined my time, Bungie. And it's back to the rich get richer statement.
Solution, and the one people were suggesting since the inception of D2 Adepts, was to add another Adept mod slot. It truly is the simplest idea one can come up with. Another mod slot is an impactful change, but it will realistically only be noticeable to a dedicated player who's able to take advantage of a statistic change like that. It'll be a coveted piece of...
Holy shit, that actually is kind of dope. Another mod slots? Dude, you could double up. You could do like temporal armaments and temporal blasts on the same. This is very power crept. We're talking very power crept shit. But that would be good.
Loot without breaking the game with crazy power creep. Same thing with Artifice armor. They had a nice bonus of +3 to whatever stat you choose, which is so much better than the tuning system. Yet, we can still have both, just with a tier 5 Artifice armor piece. While I do like them, armor sets need to have more of an impact. There are a few great sets that, if played correctly, truly do provide unique and noticeable bonuses. Yet, there's like 4 2 pieces that do this. All the 4 pieces are pretty much useless, and all the other 2 pieces are right there with it. Also, having the armor focus mod only increase the chance of getting your focus by a third is just sad. Even if it was 100%, you still have the RNG of getting the tertiary you want, then the tier 5s getting the tuning you want, and most importantly, getting the armor piece itself to drop. So with all that added layer of RNG, at least make the focus like 60%, making it so it's actually probable someone can make builds for all 3 classes. Notice how every other looter, Destiny killers some would say, like the Avengers, always miss the mark. Their loot isn't interesting. Bonus stat numbers and minor status effects, all that nonsense, aren't appreciated when it all just feels identical. D2 is bordering on that problem with the amount of reskinned guns we've been getting over the years. Destiny 1 had the perfect formula for developers to save time and for audiences to still be pleased with the new gun releases. D1 would have a weapon base model, and then they would put attachments on it to separate the gun's visual identity. D2 tries to do something similar when they're just not straight up reusing the same model.
Yeah, dude, look at that. New gun, True Prophecy, Better Devils, Service Revolver, Living Memory, the Steady Hand.
Over and over again. But they'll take a base model of a gun but slap some assets onto it to try and make it unique. This is a lazy approach and a lot less thoughtful and meaningful than the attachment approach. Bungie is still able to do their classic reuse of assets, but it's a lot more tolerable when there's actual effort to separate the weapons from each other. Yet, it doesn't matter when there's a large group of weapons largely untouched by endgame players. Primaries need a huge overhaul. Now, I'm thinking of something crazy here. What if they did actual damage? Primaries in their current state are largely useless as they don't do enough damage or provide much utility. When we can clear out rooms with 1 consecration or a lightning surge, how is a primary supposed to compete? Primaries in D1 used to be heavy hitters, so much so that people wouldn't blink twice about damaging bosses with their primaries if they ran out of heavy and special. If you shoot a boss with a primary now, outside of like the DPS ones like Outbreak, you'd honestly rather go scour around the map.
I mean, Chad, there's a reason why most of your builds that you see are what? They're ability based. Just about every build. Think about the builds that we've made. All the, what was it, the top 1% builds, the build battles, most of them are all ability based. Y'all remember Shadowkeep? Was it Shadowkeep that brought about like a huge buff to primaries across the board? Or was that a nerf? I can't remember. There was a nerf. Remember, they went across the board and they nerfed all the traits. Shadowkeep was a nerf to primaries. Yeah, you remember like Rampage? Actually, yeah, I take that back. It was a nerf, right? They nerfed everything like Rampage. They said that it was going to be a damage squeeze, but all in all, it was a nerf for all of our damage perks.
Doing nothing, looking for any signs of ammo because you know that primary is just tickling the boss. They need a flat damage increase across the board to feel good. In the Epic Desert Perpetual raid, I used the Solstice SMG, which had Chaos Reshaped and the Temporal Armaments and maxed out weapon stat. It only then felt like the primary was even able of doing something. So they would need that flat damage buff for them to feel good, and yet there would still be a Grapple Punch Hunter absolutely demolishing everything with a Navigator grapple point, so there's still little chance for them to compete. Then in the opposite manner of wanting a lot more primary usage of gameplay, we need to drastically reduce the number of abilities used in day-to-day gameplay. The Destiny gameplay loop is at its best when you have great feeling gunplay supplemented by strong abilities. The ability spam of the game is an insane problem. Ability should be supplemental to the combat, not the main driving force. Prismatic is naturally the greatest offender because of the natural uptime, and then of course Transcendence keeping that uptime to an extreme degree. It's funny to call for a nerf like this because the casual audience gets scared that their abilities will get weaker, just making them innately opposed to any negative change like that. Although I'm not suggesting we make the abilities that much weaker, just simply reduce their uptimes. Abilities should be heavy hitters that, when their ability is off cooldown, truly make a difference in moment-to-moment combat, and can be used like a panic button for casuals. Imagine how much more special a Consecration would feel when it does destroy an entire room if you weren't able to do it like 16 more times in a row because you popped Transcendence. Since we gotta be a little more realistic and we can't simply overhaul the entire ability sandbox, just do a classic Bungie maneuver and start throwing band-aid fixes on all the problematic abilities. It was crazy that they nerfed Consecration's damage and not its uptime, which everyone who actually plays the game knows is clearly the bigger issue. Just like double or triple the cooldown of Prismatic abilities just to try and make a dent in them. Even with tripled cooldowns on Prismatic, popping Transcendence will still get you like 5 Lightning Surges or Consecrations if you play it right. This will balance the underutilized builds that don't have a way of instant regen. A build like the OG Solar subclass Consecration, which doesn't have a great way of granting melee energy, it can be supplemented with a buff to the...
He lost me. Well, again, what he's saying, what makes Destiny is the combination of abilities and gunplay. And I guess you have to ask yourself, what is that split? Is it a 50-50 splits? What is the split? I could say right now, you can go through a ton of content inside of everything in the portal with very limited usage of your weapons and just spam your abilities.
Mods like momentum transfer, and the concentration you do get off will be way more impactful when you're using it. It's fun to have overpowered abilities, but the constant uptime of them makes them less meaningful, and it lowers the intrigue of them because you don't have to put any thought into what's best time to use them. The main exception for ability spam would be exotics like Sunbracers, which I feel like should be the bare minimum for how ability spam exotics work. It requires you to risk your life getting up close and personal to secure a melee kill, and then you can spam out 4 or 5 grenades. Then the melee energy doesn't instantly recharge itself. You need to either spec into Heat Rises, Momentum Transfer, or Ember of Syrian. There's a build craft need that the player needs to spec for to make Sunbracers optimal, which is good design. Compare that to the Void Warlock Chaos Accelerant buff. People are just simply throwing Axion Bolt grenades and then just getting them back and doing it again. There's no gameplay loop. They just throw grenades, wipe out the room, and then throw more. In the build videos I've watched for these, they literally say in every single one, it doesn't matter what weapons you bring, the grenades will do the work for you. What? Why would you want that? This is a shooter. A looter shooter, to be clear. If we're not using the guns we've grinded for, why would we grind new ones? Granted, in the next section, I'll talk about where something like the Axion Bolt build and overpowered spam has a place. But in the base game, ability should not have instant cooldowns like this. However, despite how good the guns may be, the big thing that people need is good content to earn them in. With Adepts being brought back to the playground, that means raids, dungeons, comp, and trials are back on the menu as the true Destiny 2 endgame experience. People would bring back their old fire teams to head into the activities that truly made Destiny special.
What the fuck is that bubble strat? Is there something I don't know about? He's trolling. For real, trolling his team. That's hilarious, man. No, that's fucking hilarious.
Then it goes without saying, but the old R&D content in the game should also drop power level. And realistically, a lot more than if you were grinding the portal. You can trade being able to earn the new tiered loot for a faster power climb, especially since it's an activity that's actually engaging and you're not just hopping into the slop farm mines. Naturally, make it so full clears give the most power and swapping between the raids gives even more. Even though farming checkpoints are faster, we need to encourage variety. the portal's greatest weakness. Regarding how Desert Perpetual works, it's very close to being an ideal system that how high tier drops should be working. Tier 5s are being showered in the portal, but for some godforsaken reason, not in the raid. Raids are always going to be more inherently difficult than a solo slop or a strike. They deserve the high tier rewards for simply stepping into them and being able to complete something. They should drop automatic tier 4s as a baseline in normal and then tier 5s in epic. But then when it comes to the feats, in the same way that the feats increase your chances for tier 5s for normal, it does the same thing on both difficulties to increase the chances for an adept to drop. Oh, and by the way, get rid of not swap, stupid ass. That modifier has absolutely no place in raids. It goes against the whole concept of the game of making builds and optimizing loadouts. And anyone who thought it should be in there should be think that they in a public. Anyway, almost lost my cool there. Let's move on. Also, they just need to stop making modern exotic missions. Whisper and 0 Hour set a bar that has yet to be even close to being topped. The new exotic missions play out like extended strikes. In reality, we just need strikes. Way more than we need those exotic missions. If the strike playlist is brought back in the way I've been suggesting, like with it in the bottom corner of the director, having new strikes to add variety in the pool will always be a benefit. Then with the consolidation of the difficulties, GMs returning would leave more of an impact as the repeatable strike experience. With the strike playlist specifically, I want both the GM and master difficulties to provide value. Think of them as nightfalls and heroic strikes from back in the day. When you load up the GM playlist, it's for the same reason you would back in the day. You want to farm endgame materials. Naturally, bringing adepts to the GMs too. And of course, trying to get some exotics. And let's talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to exotics. Exotics need to return to their status as the coveted and rare drops that truly breed excitement when they are dropped. Because of the desire for the increase in rarity for the initial drop itself, we need to create a balance for getting the god roll for the exotic armor pieces that you have once they've been unlocked. Glass needles were a great system. Xur would sell them and you could reroll your exotic as many times as you could afford. This would create the fairness in having the exotics be rare, creating the dopamine rush that happens when they dropped back in the day, while still keeping the modern attitude of perfecting god rolls for your builds. While I argued in the introduction that you wouldn't get the same excitement getting a roll from a menu as you would for it to naturally drop, exotics are the exception because their novelty and them purely dropping should be the thing that excites you. The fact that we like to build craft should be easily available because the exotic itself was so rare. Then for my
yeah, I see what's being said about exotics. The problem is, it's like they're all just like a guaranteed source drop. For instance, like I'm sure Renegades is going to be like, hey, you want to get the new exotic armor piece? Play the legendary campaign or just do the activity once, you know, just like lost sectors and getting exotics. Or, hey, you want that exotic? Buy the season pass. You know what I mean? There's just like, or pre-order the expansion.
Take on heroic strikes, aka the master strikes. I want the master strikes to give a similar amount of materials as GMs, just without the adepts and all that. Master focuses on the fun aspect of strikes more so than GMs. D1 strikes were so much simpler when it came to modifiers that actually incentivize people to play different ways. They have really strong modifiers and tough combatants that it incentivized playing around them, but didn't feel like a requirement, just a big bonus. Therefore, in the modern day, each day there should be a rotating burn and a major playstyle. One day could be void burn and grenadier, so someone might want to bring in the new axion bolts. Another day could be strand and primary burn just to spice things up. But it's also important to tune up the enemies a respectable amount so it's not a complete walk in the park. Even with the positive modifiers on master strikes, there's a high probability that if you're optimized enough with the fire team, you'll be able to crank out GMs at the same rate as a master team. But the master playlist will provide the easy matchmaking experience for wanting to hop in and make some quick and easy to understand progress. Wait a minute. Despite gapping the portal as usual, the new strike playlists should also be the main source for the return of Essence of Desire. The Essence of Desire needs to make a comeback. The Tome of Want did so much right when it came to focusing. It had a clear cost and path to get what the players wanted. If Bungie wants a seasonal currency that incentivizes people to log on each content drop, this is easily better than what we have now. Oh yeah, by the way, unstable cores need to go entirely, and that's all that needs to be said on that. We all know it. The Tome of Want should apply to as many things as it can work with in the game. If you focus a helmet, you should be getting the respective helmet out of whatever
I just liked it for materials too. The materials for them. You focus materials. Glimmer, Ascended Shards, Alloys, when we needed them.
Activity you are doing. Same thing if you pick a sidearm or whatever gun you want to choose. That is a much more player-friendly system than the portal's daily.
I never understood the tome. Lotus. And I mean this respectfully. That's a skill issue. You know what I mean? That is a skill issue.
focus that half the time has the item you'd want on the stupid quick play playlist that are way too underleveled for you to get anything out of. It goes back to the idea that if it's too annoying, people will just choose to log off than deal with it. In the same vein, we need to incentivize people's desire to actually log in with events. We need events that actually incentivize people to log in and test their capabilities. One of the most memorable experiences I had in Destiny 2 was when Bungie issued the Rite of the Nine Spire of the Watcher speedrun challenge. They were giving the Movie of the Week emblem out if you could beat the Ultimatum Spire of the Watcher dungeon in less than 13 minutes or so. Instead of a nothing burger event like Arms Week where you're just simply expected to log on and play with whatever type of gun they pick, we deserve to have actual honest-to-God events with interesting challenges. The most
Bungie tried, but oh no, everybody got upset because they couldn't get top 1%. I'm just throw that out there. Call to Arms, actually kind of a good event. But what happened? What was me? I'm not top 1%.
most natural challenge would be for them to issue a speed run like they did for Spire. Bungie can pick an activity and give a time that if someone can beat it in the weekly reset, then they get the exclusive emblem and some loot. Crazy idea. Maybe a low man challenge. There's lots of low mans. There's a whole Discord server for it. Why not cater to them at least sometimes? They can get goofy with the ideas, like one where they'll want to see the top 10 or 5% or so of players who can complete the most Garden of Salvations in the week or just the weekend, calling it the Touch Grass Challenge. Then maybe some other simpler challenges like, can you do all the solo flawless dungeons in the week? Can you do all the raids in a day? With simple events like that, people will log on to get their exclusive emblems, or in the simpler ones, just a boost to their loot, whether it's some tier 5s or an influx of Essence of Desire or Glass Needles, or maybe a guaranteed exotic drop since they're actually
I get where he's coming from. I will say, I don't know if anybody else is feeling this. There is like straight up emblem fatigue in this game going on right now. You know what I mean? Like emblems can only carry me for so long. And not only that, it's like there is a Discord with a bunch of like, I think Destiny players and Destiny content creators, and they have like different competitions, you know, community competitions that they do. But as he's talking about this, you know what I see in the background? An old strike that I would love to see in the game more so than anything else. I just want a bunch of shit back in the game.
Valuable now. Then to supplement the Let's Log On sentiment is bringing back the weekly reset. Again, like with all things I'm reworking, I want to balance the concept of rarity and generosity. We need to bring back the once a week and just get it done Nightfalls. Well, get it done 3 times since we're aiming to please the 3 character Johnsons. Nightfalls should be almost exactly like they were back in Destiny 1. Beating one should feel like a genuine accomplishment and reward the player accordingly. That's why we renamed Ultimate back to GM, because this will be the true ultimate difficulty. You have a high chance for a new exotic, shower you in resources, and give you some adept loot drops. Then of course you get the blue glow on your head, which is in the game, by the way. You get a gold version for getting guardian rank ups at the stupid tree. So bring back the glow that actually has aura, the classic blue Nightfall one. Then with the portal, so make it so weekly resets give a bunch, if not all of the nodes, their 3 bonus engrams. Also, I forgot to mention, everything that drops should at the very least be +1. If I stub my toe on a drag and accidentally kill it and it drops an engram, it should be a +1. Having everything be a powerful drop will give so much more value to the longer activities like Onslaught, since the mid-activity drops won't be automatic dismantles. The power grind should not be this huge roadblock that it is now, but a steady grind with a clear goal that feels like fun and fast progression. Having the grind in events be fulfilling will lead to the player base's good spirits, and they might be interested in showing support with monetization. Now we gotta try and tackle the final boss of Bungie. Naturally, there is a place for a free-to-play, well, free-to-try game to have microtransactions. While there are paid expansions, with the cadence we expect for updates, it makes sense that they have a cash shop. Let's not get it twisted. This is just how the industry is going to be for the foreseeable future. Yet, we can still have good business practices and still make money. The best the Eververse store ever was when the Whisper exotic mission came out. When you beat the Whisper and got the gun, the Eververse packages of ornaments were available to purchase for silver. Bungie said that if you bought these ornaments, it would fund their ability to make special missions like that in the future. There was a direct incentive for us to support the studio for them to make more good content. For most of the regular drops, they can go line the studio heads' pockets as expected, because hell would need a freeze over for that to be prevented. But for the bundle drops, which have all the nonsense items in there that inflate the cost, have those specifically be stated to support the future content endeavors and events expense. Having that distinction will cause people to feel good about buying things from Eververse and put money into the Bungie economy. Then when you see the inflated price, you actually can look at that as a good thing because it will swing back around and make good content for everyone to play. Just remember that all the goodwill is lost like a leaking ship if you put earnable rewards in the cash shop. We all remember when they put the Scarlet Keep cosmetics in the Eververse store and how terrible that felt. We literally just got the long-awaited Taken Armor set back and it's locked behind silver. Not even Bright Dust. Granted, I wouldn't want it to be available for Bright Dust. Thematic pieces like that should always come from gameplay. And just a reminder, you can't scrape out the thematic parts of the armor to try and sell it in Eververse. It doesn't work like that. Everyone will know. All that said is to never forget the motto of wanting to wear what we kill. That is the main way sentiment will be high enough to fund the evolution of the franchise. Talking about the foundation. D3 is absolutely needed. There is no way we can sustain keeping the D2 lights on forever. As we know, every time there's an update, half the game breaks. There's too much stuff to test and not enough time for the 3 QA guys to do it. Then there's the simple fact that people have been burned on D2 and will only even consider checking out the game again if there's a big 3 on the box. However, we absolutely cannot go to D3 now. We are in absolute shambles of how the game is structured and we cannot bring the current mentality of the studio to D3 because the game will die faster than it did in D2 vanilla. We need to make changes now to get the morale up, then go into the hibernation stage like they are in now, and then start making the D3 with the Marathon's non-live service team's hands being free. Then in that time, we need to explore doing something about the engine. There has been a big reason they haven't shifted off the Tiger engine, but I don't know what. People were theorizing that they haven't switched engines because they were unable to replicate the magic of shooting a Destiny
Money!
gun. However, it needs to be figured out. Their workflow was described as moving a piece of terrain on the map would need them to load the engine overnight, and then once they move that small rock or whatever, they would need to wait that same amount of time for it to process. That is an absolutely criminal wall to efficient game development and needs to be addressed. Then we need to drop last gen consoles. They need to let it go, bruh. The time of the PS4 should have ended years ago, but now is better than nothing. Another issue I have is the art style, and it's weird because I know it's not a last gen issue. I'm sure you guys have seen the D1 versus D2 comparison videos, especially with the Plague Lands in Ash and Iron being a big uproar. This screenshot I feel best embodies the lost magic of the atmosphere in Destiny. What happened? This was on the PS4. Despite me saying we should have ended last gen consoles, they clearly did it better.
You know what I was told? I was told that everything in D1 graphics were baked in. So like if you went up to an item in D1, like a core or something, the shadow or the shading of that item would be baked in. Whereas in Destiny 2, it's what's the word, volumetric. You actually have your shifting and whatnot. And so they had, you know, so it's like instead of having this flat piece of the world that shifts based on weather elements and whatever else, you had all these like baked in pieces inside of D1 that were almost like these set pieces.
How did the next gen screenshot lose so much detail? It feels like a shell of its former self. It's a big factor, even if it's subconscious, why there's hesitance to even spend time in the game world. Everything is flat, lacking detail. It's lost its dynamic nature. So surely this is like an engine problem, not a laziness one, and I hope it gets fixed in D3. But if that's not an option, we need to talk about Destiny 2's budget increase and my wish list. Bring back Wrath. We've said it 1,000 times. Just bring it back already. We need it. But in addition to that, with focusing being something that can decrease the grind if you're lucky, we need to bring back unique and rare items. Strike-specific loot was a great way to do this. We need each activity to have a unique drop tied to it. It cannot be understated how much value strike-specific loot provided in both D1 and D2. It's good to have the broad loot pool, especially if it can be focused so you can play anything and get rewarded for it. However, I'm not really a fan of the portal in that you are heavily incentivized to find the fastest activity and run that on repeat all the livelong day. With strike-specific loot, yes, you would be incentivized to run one activity and repeat it all the livelong day, but there's a clear and valued reason to do so with a tangible end goal. Each activity should have a unique piece of gear that can have an adept curated role or an artifice armor piece. Curated roles were something that Forsaken did great that disappeared for some reason. Since adepts are locked behind the major endgame activities, I wanted to give average players a taste of their power to incentivize them to play for the endgame gear that they can get here and increase their desire to go try the rest of the endgame out. Another place these curated adepts should drop is on world bosses. An underrated feature of the Taken King was finding the Taken events in Patrol. Patrolling is a lost art, especially because they turned off the online capability of the new destinations. Pale Heart and Kepler are both solo instance destinations. The only time you have other guardians in them is if you bring them yourself or do a match-made activity like Overthrow or Sieve. They need to revert that, because with this change, the studio isn't making games we would want to play or creating worlds that inspire friendships. That really boils down the problems with the state of the game, doesn't it? The game doesn't fit either of the company's mottos. Regardless, world bosses should be around in patrols that have a unique drop tied to them, whether it's one for each boss or a small pool of 3 or 4 that's tied to the concept of a world boss. And also, since public events are kind of the intended glimmer farm, defeating a boss should shower you in it. So imagine people gathering around because they see a message, whether it's a classic like the pack of wolves is prowling or something entirely new up to the imagination. So the curated roles that drop from these end strikes, since they're adept, should have actual unique perk combos that we don't normally see. One off the top of my head is just putting Harmony and Master of Arms on a gun. It's strong that it's 2 damage perks, but not power creeped at the Johnson because it's, well, it's Harmony. The next thing is tied to events. We need more fun modes and events. SRL is the clear winner here. While some people weren't the biggest fans, it really added some variety to the game and was super fun to play. Fix the new light experience. Good lord, it is so terrible that even me putting this in the wish list section, I have to like compartmentalize the fact that this is never going to be fixed. So at this point, just give.
Somebody brought up a great point in our video when we were going over the poll choices that were emailed out to everyone. The new light experience should just be bundled in with the reintroduction of the Red War campaign. And yeah, I completely agree with that, because that is the beginning of Destiny 2. And if you could somehow merge the two together, not only do you have this thematic experience that sets the tone for Destiny, but you can also teach people in the process.
Witch Queen for free and just make that the new light campaign, because at least that's somewhat interesting. Although to dissect that a bit, there's a sentiment that I see a lot that I can't really fully understand. People say since the light and dark story ended with the Witness, there's no point to play anymore. Who plays Destiny for the story? Like, since the franchise's inception, everyone has said the story is clearly the weakest part of the game. The only stories that come close to being good for me are Taken King and Witch Queen. Even the other well-regarded stories like Forsaken and Final Shape are just well-hidden basic questing stories. Cade died, now go kill all the bad guys who helped kill him. We're in the Pale Heart, go find all the Vanguard members to reunite them. Granted, I just realized the thing that elevates the 2 stories is Cade. Which brings me to my point. With the newfound desire to have a campaign that experiments with genres and whatnot, I want a campaign that is a lot slower and takes the time to develop the characters who are actually there with us for the gameplay. They'll do things like have Zavala hide behind his barricade in the Final Shape, which is honestly lamer than him not being there at all. We need to have a little bit of scripted events, like how in Red War we got to the speakers area to see it completely gone, then a ship came up and Itora took it down with a Nova Bomb. We also need some organic moments with the characters in gameplay. Have it so that like a Tormentor can grab one of them and they call out for help and we need to step in and save them. The character's presence need to be felt, because outside of Cade, I don't really care about any of these Destiny characters past like a surface level. We need a story that truly explores a character's depth and motivations with interesting plot points that test out their flaws and humanity. The closest we ever get to that is like Crow reeling over being Uldren like twice a year. We need more depth and intrigue than that. I also heard an idea somewhere, but it was something that was creating fantastic world building, gets people interested, and starts off as a fun secret. I don't remember it exactly, but it boiled down to randomly in the Cosmogone or somewhere on Earth, there should be a red cloud that has a strange looking red rain. Then afterward in the tower, you find someone sick, coughing out red clouds, leading to a plot point about an outbreak of some sort. It ties the world together with a secret, producing environmental storytelling and leaves story beats for the game to explore. Yet, that's a small thing. And there's one big thing I haven't addressed in the video. We forgot about the Crucible. So here's the secret wishlist part of the video. I went through the whole script without realizing I didn't even touch PvP really. Crucible is a vital part of the Destiny experience and deserves way more respect than Bungie or the noobs who say they should just remove the mode, get it credit for. PvP is an evergreen concept because every match is different, leading to some of the most replayable content for when things get dry. It goes without saying, we need a consistent stream of maps throughout the year and they need to actually balance the mode. It is crazy that the Graviton spike was as potent as it was for that long, yet it took months for them to barely touch it and they had to take another swing at it for it to finally stop busting everyone's balls. Bring back the strike team. Go Go pluck some of the guys from Marathon, or rather bring them back from where they originally came from, because that game is doomed anyway, so get them to lock in over here. We also need new modes. The problem Bungie has been taking with their fun modes is that they really miss the point of Crucible. People like to fire their guns. The gunplay is what separates Destiny from other games. We need modes not like Team Scorched or Prigs and Tanks, which are super clunky, only has one map, and we're forced to play it if we wanted to get the Eager Edge Sword, tainting the fun factor. They should experiment with fun modes that don't remove gunplay. My friends would always do random loadout rumble back in the day. That would be a fun playlist. Once you load into it, it randomly picks out a primary, special, and heavy from your account in your vault, and then locks your loadout. Then in the more classic manner of fun, a simple gun game would be great. Just going through a couple exotics, starting with a pistol-like one like Devil's Ruin, and ending with a sword hilt. Then if we really wanted to get crazy with it, have a Michael Myers mode where the killer can't see everyone and they would have to hide in the map to avoid the killer. Granted, that one would take people's weapons away, but the novelty of it would make it worth it.
I will say Halo had some fantastic modes. In fact, it was so good. Griffball was so good. You know, Juggernaut was so good. You just had somebody that was just super amped. Trials needs to get its train back on the tracks. What made Trials special was the prospect of making it to the lighthouse. That's where the magic happened. The Trials passage should have mercy baked into it, and there should only be one passage. We cannot separate the players like they love to do now. Since going to the lighthouse will be the true incentive again, we should incentivize people doing carries so that we can get some population of people who are less skilled to play. In line with my Adept reprisals, Adepts are only available after going flawless. You should get a bonus Adept if you bring someone who hasn't gone flawless that season. Tier 5s will drop for getting 7 wins, but you shouldn't be able to go to the lighthouse. Bring back card-based matchmaking. It makes it so that the last game is an actual high stakes and intense moment. There's actually something on the line for every— Dude. QJ right now is like probably screaming if he's in this chat. Card-based matchmaking. Does anybody remember card-based matchmaking?
To go to the lighthouse. Bring back card-based matchmaking. It makes it so that the last game is an actual high stakes and intense moment. There's actually something on the line for everyone on the match.
What that really means is as the card goes on, it will get sweatier. That also means that at the end, when you're sitting there with almost a flawless card, a 6-0 card, you will most likely be facing someone who is also going for flawless. What this results in is many failed flawless runs, unless you're just absolute gamers. But what this, I mean, it results in, you know already, I mean, the butthole gets puckered on that last game because you're going to be going against someone who's also trying to go flawless.
Once people do reach 7 wins, whether they're flawless or not, they can farm the cards at a slightly less sweaty way than actual Game 7 stakes, but giving enough challenge so it earns Tier 5 rewards. There's an incentive for good players to go flawless and for casuals to get 7 wins and keep playing. Right now, there's little incentive to go flawless. As a matter of fact, players are resetting their cards so they don't go flawless and reach the hell that comes once they've reached it. It's important to not completely exclude players from wanting to be in the mode, but again, we gotta remember who it's truly made for. Let me know what you guys agreed with and what you didn't in the comments below, and I hope you appreciated me trying to make changes that are realistic as possible for the 10 guys at Bungie to try and implement. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to check me out live, I stream on Twitch and YouTube Friday, Saturday, Sunday at 7 Pacific. Regardless, click here to watch my classic funny moment raid videos. I know you guys will enjoy them.
Spade, thank you for the video, man. I think that some great points were dropped here, and it's kind of weird how we go full circle with Bungie at times where maybe the best system is a system they've already done before. Maybe some of their best systems were systems that were designed back in year 1. We'll see. We'll see what actually shakes out. I do know one thing. Right now, loot and the prestige of loot has really fallen off. It's just not there.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.